A massive explosion rips through your position. You're thrown into the dirt, ears ringing, blinded by black smoke. You scramble to your feet, coughing, only to realize the nightmare scenario has just happened. The supply wagons carrying your army's gunpowder have just accidentally detonated. You're a Spanish soldier in April 1503 standing in a shallow ditch, and you have just lost your ammunition. Panic erupts instantly. Men are screaming that God has abandoned them, and then the ground begins to vibrate. Through the clearing smoke you see them. 12,000 French soldiers, led by the finest heavy cavalry in Europe, charging directly at you. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and now potentially defenseless. But in the middle of this chaos, your commander, Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, doesn't flinch. He rides straight into the panic, points at the burning wreckage and shouts, "Good news, friends! These are the lights of our victory. We won't need artillery tonight." He is lying, of course. He is terrified, but his lie stops the rout. It forces 5,000 men to turn back around and face the oncoming wall of steel. This isn't just a battlefield accident. It is the opening move of the Battle of Cerignola, 1503, the exact moment where the Middle Ages collide violently with the modern era. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Now, wipe the dirt off your face and look at what is coming for you. To understand why you should be terrified, you have to understand the enemy. The French army approaching you is not just a military force, it is an undefeated monster. For 100 years, the French gendarme, the fully armoured heavy cavalryman, has been the apex predator of European warfare. They are the tanks of the 16th century. They don't use tactics, they use physics. They smash into infantry lines, and the infantry lines break. It is a simple, brutal law of nature. And what do you have? You have a ditch, you have a dirt rampart. And you have a weapon that most knights consider a toy, the arquebus. It's a primitive firearm, barely more than a metal tube on a stick. It's slow, it's inaccurate. If you miss your shot, you're dead before you can reload. But Gonzalo has a plan that defies all military logic of the time. He isn't meeting the French on the open field, he's digging in. He has ordered you to turn this vineyard into a kill box. The explosion earlier was a mistake, but everything else here is calculated. The trench in front of you is deep enough to stop a charging horse. The dirt wall is high enough to shield you from crossbow bolts. The French see you waiting. They see a small, pathetic army huddled behind a mound of dirt. They laugh. They are so confident in their superiority that their commander, the Duke of Nemours, hasn't even waited for his full army to assemble. He orders the attack immediately. He wants to crush you before the sun goes down. As the French trumpets sound, the vibration in the ground turns into a rumble. Thousands of armoured horses break into a gallop. This is the moment of truth. In the old world, the knights would ride over you, scatter your formation, and hunt you down for sport. But today, with your match cords burning and your arquebuses levelled over the dirt wall, you're about to introduce them to the new world. The panic from the explosion is gone, replaced by a cold, hard focus. The knights are coming, and they have no idea that they are charging into their own graves. To understand the sheer insanity of standing in that ditch, you have to look at what was coming down the hill. You have to understand that the French army of the early 1500s wasn't just a military force, it was a cultural institution. They were the undisputed heavyweight champions of Christendom, and the core of that power was the gendarme. The word gendarme eventually comes to mean police officer in modern French, but back then it meant man-at-arms. These were the elite of the elite, aristocrats by birth, killers by profession. To put a single gendarme on the battlefield required the GDP of a small village. He wore a suit of Milanese plate armour that weighed 60 pounds, custom fitted to his body like a second skin. It was engineering perfection, designed to deflect sword strokes and shatter lance tips. He rode a destrier, a horse bred specifically for violence, massive, aggressive, and often costing more than the armour itself. In the context of the Italian wars, the French gendarmerie was considered invincible. They had smashed the Swiss pikemen, they had run over the Italians, they had humiliated everyone who dared to meet them in the open field. Their tactic was simple, the shock charge. They didn't maneuver or flank. They lined up knee to knee and hit the enemy centre like a sledgehammer hitting a pane of glass. It wasn't subtle, but it didn't need to be. It worked. Leading this terrifying machine was Louis d'Armagnac, the Duke of Nemours. He was the Viceroy of Naples, a man of high blood and even higher confidence. Nemours was the perfect embodiment of the medieval knight. Brave, dashing and catastrophically arrogant, he looked at war as a sporting event between gentlemen. To him, the Spanish army under Gonzalo Fernández de Córdoba wasn't a worthy opponent, they were a nuisance. For months, the French had been chasing the Spanish across southern Italy. The Spanish had refused to fight, retreating, skirmishing and avoiding a pitched battle. In the eyes of the Duke of Nemours, this was cowardice. He didn't understand that the Spanish were buying time. He didn't see the strategy, he only saw weakness. So, when his scouts reported that the Spanish had finally stopped retreating and were digging in near the town of Cerignola, Nemours didn't see a trap. He saw a prey that had finally cornered itself. His lieutenants advised caution. The French troops were exhausted. They had marched all day in the heat without water. The supply lines hadn't caught up. Some of his veteran captains suggested waiting until the next morning to attack, to let the men rest and bring up the artillery. It was sensible, sound military advice. But Nemours refused. He was insulted by the very idea of waiting. He reportedly said that to delay the attack would be a